Alright guys, let's go ahead with this topic, sound. And in this session I want you guys to focus on how is sound basically produced. We'll actually see a lot of slow motion videos where vibrating bodies do produce sound. One of such body is a guitar. We all know the guitar would actually make sound, right? Even we, when we speak, we actually create sound, right? We produce sound. We'll see how is this happening. For now, let's see, I just play this guitar. I can see that I'm just plucking these strings and I can see that music is produced, right? So how is this exactly happening, is the question. Now the idea is simple guys. It says sound is produced by a vibrating body. So do you think so that these strings which I'm plucking are vibrating? Let's talk about it. Let's just go and zoom in with this guys and see. And I want you guys to focus on a couple of things, okay? When I play this string, the sound is very, very different than when I play this string. So keep this in mind. This fat string and the lean string, the sound is very different, okay? And I can see as I play this, we can see these strings are actually vibrating, right? Exactly, we can see these strings are vibrating, and that's how we can say a sound is produced by a vibrating body. Now I want you guys to see these things in slow motion, in real instruments. Basically, there are things vibrating which produce a sound. The next question we should ask is, how does the sound travel basically? Now look at this, when I play this string, right? Now, we can hear this, but how does the sound travel from this string to my ears, and how do I basically understand this? Now that is very interesting guys. We cannot actually see what is happening between the string and my ears because we cannot see the air in between these things. Air is too small to see, right? Very tiny particles we cannot actually see. But if we visualize it in an animation, then we can actually figure out how basically sound travels. So first of all guys, I want you guys to check that all vibrating bodies actually do produce sound. For that we'll take a couple of bodies which we know which create sounds like musical instruments, and then let's see inside what happens in the real slow motion images or videos that actually they are vibrating. Alright, and that's exactly how the sound is produced. This video would be very interesting. Have patience guys. This is basically building your basics, alright, about physics. So have a lot of patience. Let's go and see this. Alright guys, to understand what exactly is happening deep inside when I pluck a guitar string, we have just actually slowed down this video to a very good extent. You may not hear anything, but you actually can see that the strings are vibrating with different frequencies. We'll come back to that a little later in characteristic of sound, but I want you guys to understand this, okay? Keep this in mind, that sound is produced by vibrating bodies, and different objects vibrate with different, we can say style right now, but we will talk about it as frequency a little later. Let's say different objects vibrate at different styles, and that's why they make different sounds. So keep that style word important. We'll connect that to frequency as we go ahead. Alright guys, you can see that all these strings are vibrating when we pluck, and look at the vibrations are very different. Two things to see here, that these strings are of different thickness, right? And they're vibrating with different style. The style is what will connect to frequency as we go ahead. Keep this in mind. Now I want you guys to carefully watch this, and I will actually draw something on the screen for you guys to understand what I'm actually talking about. Alright, look at this, what's happening in this case right now. When I see that all these strings are definitely vibrating. Well, I'll just pause this video guys for you to understand what's happening. These are actually real videos. They're not animations, they're not pictures, they're actual real videos of a guitar string. Alright, look at this. I can see that this thickness here is pretty big, right? The string here is very fat, the diameter is big, and I can see the wave is like this, right? So it's a big wave. Now look at this guy is a little thinner, this guy is much thinner. I'm talking about this guy. The difference between these two strings is basically this is a fat string, this is a lean string, and this guy is producing more waves. Look at this, it's producing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves in this case, right? So we'll talk about these things a little later. Now when I come back to this guy, I can see this is producing a little more waves compared to the previous one, right? So I can see that this is the difference between these strings. The fat strings actually will have long waves or big waves, and as we go ahead to thin strings, they make more shorter waves. Now we will actually learn about the technical details of this as we go ahead, but just watch this very carefully. The fat strings make big waves and the thin strings make many waves but thin short waves, right? Look at this. Let's continue the video and see how the last string actually vibrates in this case. Watch the video carefully, guys. We actually focusing on the last string. Look at that. We can see there are a lot of waves actually which were produced in this. Let me slow down, guys, and still this object right now in this case. I can see here, this is the position I'm talking about. Look at this. Here I can see that there are different strings. The last string, the last but one, the last strings, you can see that the number of waves are different. Okay, let's stop the video here and try to understand what's happening in this case. At this point we can clearly see that here we have the number of waves are actually more compared to the number of waves in this case, right? And definitely more from this, guys. We actually had only 2 waves like this, right? So this is the difference, guys. The fatter strings actually vibrate with bigger waves or longer waves. We will come to the terminologies as we go ahead, but the thin strings vibrate with lot of waves coming out in this. Now, if I call this as frequency, keep this word in mind. We will talk about frequency as we go ahead in this chapter. But right now we understand one thing, that when we play a musical instrument, what's happening deep inside is the instrument is vibrating, and those vibrations are nothing but sound. Let's talk about another instrument right now. Right, yes. Now the next instrument we're talking about is a violin, and I can see that this violin is basically we move this stick here over one of the strings and actually it makes sound. What's happening deep inside? Do you think again the string is vibrating? See, look at the video beautifully. I can see that the string is vibrating, right? It is basically moving like that, and that energy is given to the air molecules which come to my ear. We will talk about this in a little while, but right now we understand one thing, that sound is produced by a vibrating body, right? So vibrations are really important. We can see in a violin, of course, the string is vibrating, and that's how we actually see or hear the sound. And I can see here, this string is what I'm talking about. Beautifully we can see deep inside what's happening. Let's take another instrument now. The what we have here in the screen is a drum set. Basically, look at that. When I bang the drum set with a stick, you can see that the whole drum set is vibrating. You can see that the whole membrane here is vibrating, and that basically pushes or vibrates the air, which we can hear as the drum beats. All right, now let's talk about a tuning fork, guys, and we hit it on a rubber bat and see what happens. It produces sound. We can also see the waves produced in oscilloscope. Basically, look at that. But how beautiful it is. But the idea is we cannot see it with our naked eyes, that whether the tuning fork is really vibrating or not. What I'm talking to this, guys, I can see here in this case, this is the tuning fork, and I don't know whether this guy is vibrating, right? So I don't see any movements here in this case, actually, right? I'm talking about these 2 tongs of the tuning fork. I don't see they are vibrating, because they would be vibrating really fast, and the vibrations are very thin. All right, we can't actually see it with the naked eyes. But do you think so we can see it in a slow motion? Let's try that. Now if you see the same tuning fork on a very slow motion camera, see what happens is this. I can see very clearly that it is vibrating. We can see the vibrations. Now to get the proof of it, just put it into the water. We can see that the energy, the vibrations basically would vibrate the water also, and the water actually flies off the glass. And that's how we understand, yes, of course the tuning fork was vibrating, and it gave its energy to the water molecules, and they actually can fly like that. Now the question is this, guys, what's happening? Now in air, basically we can't see air, but we can actually see water, and we can see that the water molecules were pushed like that, and they actually moved the other water molecules, and they all flew like that, right? So if you think that water is a fluid, air is also a fluid which can flow basically. And if I say that, let's suppose we have a musical instrument here near my hand, and if I play this guy, what's happening to the sound? Basically the vibrations from the instrument are actually traveling through air. The air molecules are vibrating, like we can see the water molecules vibrating here. Now since we cannot see air, we should understand it is happening, the same phenomenon is happening with air as it is happening here with water. So now we are very clear that any sound is produced because of what? A vibrating body? Yes, of course. And for it to travel again, those vibrations have to be passed from the instrument till my ears, and for that we need some medium. Well, I will talk about all these things as we go with the next animation. Now we'll go in a little more depth to understand this concept, guys.